Welcome back to How to Tickle Yourself, a podcast about the miracle of existence. I am your host, Duff McDonald, along with my co-host, Joey of Rockledge.
Hello.
In every episode, we and our guests try to seek out and grab hold of the tickle of our true selves. By sharing stories about the great things in life, we hope to point the way to the goal of goals, the source of infinite bliss, the supreme reality itself. Maybe we'll find it one day. In the meantime, we hope at the very least to inform and entertain with conversations that hover at ratings approaching 100%. At How to Tickle Yourself, we always win the day. Today marks another first for this show. It's the first time we've ever had the sibling of a previous guest as a guest. We set new records all the time at How to Tickle Yourself, and we're doing it again right now. Susanne Langlois is a Canadian artist based in Kingston, Ontario. She is sister to Paul Langlois, the musician, who we've recently had on the show. She's also a friend of the family, married to our old friend Mike Preston, a.k.a. the Big Salam. Sue has been painting for over 20 years and currently works in three distinct styles: abstract, still life botanicals, and contemporary landscape featuring wind turbines. We have two of that last type in this very house. Anyone listening right now, I encourage you to go check out her website before you continue so you can know what we're talking about. You can find her at www.Susanne, Susanne, Langlois, Langlois.com, SusanneLanglois.com. Going back a little in time, in college, Sue and a good friend of hers started a small clothing design business. This is before she was a painter. After graduation, they relocated to Toronto, and their brand Ezaware was a fixture in the grassroots fashion scene in Toronto for 10 years. It was also a fixture in my closet during that time. During that time, the US dollar was very strong vis-a-vis the Canadian dollar. So every time I went back to Toronto, I would quite literally load up on almost everything Ezaware had to offer. Pants, shirts, sweaters, the works. It would not be a stretch to say that Sue Langlois dressed me for much of the 90s. That is why I always looked so good. We love Sue here at Rockledge, and we're thrilled to have her on the show to talk painting, wind turbines, good clothes, what it's like to live in the other Kingston, and where she sources the best tickles in her life. Welcome to the show, Sue. It's great to see you.
Thank you. So great to see you, too. Nice intro. I appreciate it.
The present moment, traveling town to town, the mystery of the motion, right here, right now, right here, right now, whoa, right here, right now.
So we're looking, anyone who's looking on YouTube here, we got to just get to the obvious question. I'm not sure I've ever even asked this to you. Why wind turbines? Of all the things that one could return to, what happened? How'd that happen?
Oh, you don't know? We haven't talked about this before. So in the time that you talked about when I lived in Toronto, when I grew up here, we face out to Wolfe Island across Lake Ontario in Kingston. We're on the north shore of Lake Ontario. And it was always just an island with farmland on it. And when I moved back here with Mike and my family in 2007, it was right when they were completing a wind farm with about 85 wind turbines. So it really changed the landscape. And it's beautiful. We kind of missed the whole, any kind of turmoil around whether or not it was going up and how people were reacting to it. And we just got here and the construction was nearing completion. And a couple of years in, it was kind of like a light bulb. I was like, why isn't anyone painting this? And I had never painted landscape, but I was working on abstracts at the time. And I think I just thought it would be amazing, like, to have the idea of a landscape with a horizon line. And then rather than trees and all these things that I've never really painted before, it's just so graphic. And I thought, wow, that could be, really make abstract. Well, it changes it from abstract because suddenly there would be a real focal point that would be representational. But it just made sense to me, like line and lines, and it gives a framework for the painting. But then I also I really thought, wow, how come no one is painting this when it's where we live? And not that no one was, but I wasn't seeing it in galleries. There wasn't anyone local that I knew of that was doing it. So I thought, well, they better do this quickly. And still, I find people aren't really painting it, but I do find that people respond to it.
So you've got the franchise. Beautiful. You've got the wind turbine franchise.
Kind of. I do think, at least around here, people associate me with wind turbines. I can say that.
So how did you end up painting? Sorry, Jeff.
Painting in general?
Painting from clothing. How did you go from one to the other, or were they overlapped? Or
they did overlap. I always did it on the side. I mean, I always enjoyed drawing and being creative, and I just kind of took that for granted, like in high school. But I was never really encouraged to go into that career. I would fill out the surveys or whatever at school, whatever the aptitude tests and all those things. And I had good marks in math, so it would always be something business, like, oh, well, and actually would say, you can be a fashion designer, because that was like a creative business.
Or an accountant. You should be an accountant.
I know. Oh my gosh. I first went into commerce at school and I was like, what am I doing here? So that actually happened then when I was at university, and then I switched into arts, just general arts, because they didn't have fine arts at McGill. But I started just looking for electives that were creative and more, anything, like there was stuff in the education department where I could do actual studio classes. So I did a painting class there where we learned how to stretch our own canvas. And it was like a 3-hour class a couple of times a week. And I loved it. So I did continue doing that on the side and never really thought it would be a career. And then when we had the clothing business, it was super busy. I mean, we were doing everything. It was a very ambitious enterprise. And so I didn't have a lot of time, but I would try to do it. Like occasionally I would have a show and just try to keep that little side of myself active and a distraction from the business. So I started then.
What happened? I don't remember this either. What catalyzed the transition from fashion to actual painting as a full-time endeavor?
Right. Well, as much as we loved Eza, it was very demanding, and we got to a point where we kind of needed like a real fork in the road, and we were thinking about having kids. Like my business partner had a life partner, and I was with Mike, and we were all thinking about having kids, and we hadn't really set it up to the point where we could, have a proper management staff in place and step back. We were really hands-on, and even selling it seemed difficult because we were so attached to the brand. We were doing the designing, we just hadn't made that leap to be able to walk away. And then Erin, my partner, got her husband had a fellowship in San Francisco as a doctor, and they were going to be gone for 2 years. And it was sort of like, okay, well, are we going to be able to make this work? And so it was kind of a big decision where we just decided to close shop. And then Mike and I shortly after moved to Kingston, and then it made sense. By that point I was showing, and
and did you see painting, like was painting just sitting there as, okay, this is next, or did it? Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
So it's always been sort of, you said, I read somewhere that you said it was very meditative and very grounding for you. So it's always, always
for
been
sure. And I used to do a lot more of the still life, like sort of that was what I always did before the abstract phase I was talking about. And I just I mean, I don't know that I ever thought I was great or anything like that, but I knew that I enjoyed it and that I could keep doing it.
I had yet another oversight on my part. I hadn't really appreciated the abstract part of your stuff until looking just today. I love that stuff. Is that, I feel like I've never really known about it.
Oh,
is that just my fault?
No. I mean, we don't live in the same country, first of all. It's a little harder to mount. Like, I haven't done as many shows, exhibitions of abstract. It doesn't really, I mean, I'll submit it I've done it in group shows and stuff like that, but, it's kind of its own thing. And I like to paint big with the abstract. So if I'm going to do a show that's just that, it really takes quite a lot to mount it. And I don't find it translates as well into digital. Like, I'm glad you had that reaction, because I guess you were looking at the website or social media or something. But yeah, I find it a lot more difficult to photograph or to have someone photograph and have me look at it and say that's what it looks like. That might be it.
No, okay. No, I love them.
And I have a question. How do you decide what you're going to name? Like, especially with the abstract, how do you decide what you're going to name them? Do you think of a name and then work from that, or do you?
I don't usually work from it. Sometimes it comes to me during the process. I mean, this is a question that could have a pretty long answer, but with the still lifes, I've always just pretty much just named it after the flowers. So it's like orchid or something, or if I do a different color background, it's just like blue with orchid or something like that. That's been pretty standard. And then with the wind turbines, I've often named them after songs. So that's fun. There's a Tangled Up in Blue, and nice. I try to be a bit. I don't know. I've never looked into what the copyright is or anything. So I any that I'm going to do a lot of posting, I try not to be too overt, but I do, or I'll have a lyric or something like that, or. So sometimes it's tough, especially there are often times when something's about to go out the door and I have to sign the back and I realize I haven't titled it, and then I can't come up with anything that I'm But the abstracts the titles come to me in a different way. Like, it's been I think it's just a much more intuitive process. And when I first started doing them, the first one that I did that I was really happy with and kind of was like, wow, this is a finished abstract painting. I called it Belief, and it was like a real, belief in myself and belief in the process. And I did a few after that, and they just followed that theme. Like, one was trust, and I would also write it into the painting somewhere, maybe not too obvious, but I would put it in, and sometimes there's words, sometimes there's just different marks. And I feel like it sounds a little hokey when I say it, but it was really meaningful, and like, it was just, that was exactly what was happening. And I find that fun, and it's always really easy for me to, like, there's something that comes through while I'm painting it. Sometimes there's crossover. Like, I have one over here I'm just thinking about, and it's called Light My Way. And I think I literally was listening to you too. But it also fit in with the other ones. Like, it was kind of a bit of more of a calling, Anyway,
I was listening when I wrote my first book, a biography of Jamie Dimon. I spent it listening to Taylor Swift's first album. Thank God I didn't have that same inclination at the time.
Yeah. Oh, there could be some good ones. I just saw the movie on the weekend.
Oh,
that movie.
Marguerite's pounding the table for that.
Yeah.
So what about I saw something on your site, and also in one of the bios we looked at, where you talk about the connection to the fact that the art gives you connections to people, right, as a very important part of the process. And it made me remember back in the Drawn Onward days, a lot of those guys used to be really stressed about an impending show. right? And I would
Yeah.
think, why are you so stressed? You're about to have a party for yourself. When you have a show opening, what are you feeling? Like that day when you're going in, are you nervous? Are you excited? Are you
Excited. Yeah, I don't get nervous about that. I mean, it's pretty easy. I find it really easy to talk about my work. I find a lot of things I'm really last minute about, but I think when I'm doing a show, I feel like if I think back, I'm never really scrambling, like somewhat, but not like it was for fashion shows where we were like sewing at midnight. Like, so I feel like I'm prepared, and I don't know, I really enjoy it. Like people are there to, and it's different from entertaining. Like I'm at that point, I'm usually ready to put myself out there. I usually have a crisis of faith before, like maybe a month before, everything sucks. And now I know how to get through that a little better.
How do you do that?
How do I do that? Oh God, Mike.
I think we all have a minute where you're like, God, everything just sucks. You know, everyone's got that in their life.
It's terrible. Yeah, for sure. Well, it's good to hear. It's good to connect with people over that, because when you're in it and when I'm in it, it's dark. I mean, I really am convinced that everything is terrible and I'm never going to do it again. And, you know, and Mike will be like, what are you talking about? It's going to be fine. And it doesn't go in.
Yeah. No, it's like, so Jeff and I were talking about just observing that when it happened, like, cause I was kind of that way yesterday. It's like I was grumpy about everything, and it was me. It was just like, it wasn't everything. And it was just like, it just kind of settles down on you sometimes. Yeah. And that, you know, once you can observe it and recognize it, that this is, we were talking about the gunas and the different, sort of, how do you describe them, Duff?
Well, the yogis will basically just tell you, if you can objectify a feeling and look at it, it's not you.
Right.
Right. So if you can see that it's happening to you again, who's doing the
space?
Who's doing the seeing? You.
Yeah.
Right. So you could just look at it and say, Christ, you again, which isn't the you. It's not the I. Yeah. It's the me. Right. Yeah. And it just needs to be told to, you know, not you're no longer welcome here.
Well, it just sort of loses its power once you can kind of witness something and watch it rather than identifying with it. You know, when it's like, when you can see it for what it is, that it's just kind of a passing cloud kind of a thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then it loses its ability to grab hold of you so much.
It's so true.
I got a question. You are from an artistic family, at least two of you. I don't know your other siblings. Is there something that your parents did that you have done or have tried to emulate to keep a creative orientation in your kids?
A very laissez-faire.
Right.
I mean, and I don't even know if that's by choice. I just recognize that I kind of grew up with that, and that we also have
the exact same way. I feel the same way.
Really?
Yeah.
And interesting. And you do have a creative family,
right? It's that they basically encouraged us to do our best and left it at that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like they didn't have expectations, but that's a good way of putting it. And you know, they so much just landed on us. Like, well, if you're not happy with this, like, do something else. And I mean, my parents both did go to Queen's, and my dad was like, he was a phys ed teacher, so he was a bit more like, he was just so nostalgic about his experience of going away and making friends and everything. So in that way, I think he really wanted us to have that kind of experience. But yeah, they're both very creative in their own ways, and I think just kind of let us find our way. We'll see what happens with my kids. They are both very creative, but you know, it's different too. Like, this is a whole can of worms, but that whole lack of boredom, you know, like, what do they gravitate towards first? And looking at like the pandemic or whatever, I mean, I think our kids had to get to the point where they were so bored that they were bored of social media and everything and movies and everything that they finally had to like sketch or something. But it just must have taken like way, way longer than it ever was for us.
Right, that was like summer for us in the 70s. Like it's like there's only so much TV we could watch, and then we'd just be bored to tears. I think it's good for you. I think you need a little of that.
Marguerite and Caroline just went riding every day.
Yeah.
Oh,
literally every day. Like
Marguerite's artistic too, though. She's got that side of her. Like she likes to paint a bit, and she's curious about it. And yeah, she's a pretty well-rounded kid.
So we're in Kingston. We live just outside Kingston, New York, and you're in Kingston, Canada. So when I was going up to the cottage a few years ago, I meant to get T-shirts for my nieces and nephews at the New York store at the border. I was going to get them some I Love New York stuff.
Yeah.
And it turned out the way we went, they didn't have the store. I was like, wait, I thought they had these at all the border crossings. So I bought T-shirts from Kingston, Ontario, and pretended they were from Kingston, New York.
That's great.
Do you know, are you aware of which is the better Kingston?
No, but I've called a few businesses in your town by accident. No, I should. That's a really good reason to finally get there, is to really do it. Yeah.
Big brother, little brother, big brother, little sister. Or maybe we could say, which is the male Kingston and which is the female Kingston?
Yeah. I mean, do you have an opinion? You have more experience with both.
Joey?
Yeah. I don't think I've been to Kingston, Ontario.
Oh, no.
Have I?
Yeah,
no.
Gotta get you here.
I've been
Kingston,
kind of
New York
by
is the male. Kingston, Canada is the female. There you go.
Right.
But
so
they could work together as a symbiotic whole.
Yeah, for sure. Well, there could be some partnerships there for sure.
Mm-hmm. Sue, what are the things, or wait, before we get to the tickles, you are sitting in a studio that I believe was designed and built by you and your husband. Is that, are you in the upstairs or where is that? It's downstairs or upstairs?
I'm in the downstairs. So this is like our main open area. And yes, I can't take that much credit. It was really Mike. Mike designed it. I mean, I had input.
But was being able to sort of design and create your own studio, did that change the creative process at all? Did it make it easier? Make it harder?
I don't think either. I mean, it probably changed it. I feel more obligated to get into that studio now. Michael come upstairs every once in a while and come in my studio and say, "Oh my God, why did I give you this room?" And I'm downstairs in the front. So I try and keep him out.
All right.
Yeah, but we just love it. Like, I mean, I really appreciate it every day. It makes me appreciate the, form and function on a whole new level, for sure.
Okay, so our thing we've decided to start asking guests recently is, what are the things that are tickling you right now? So we want 2 of them, and they can be about anything. They don't have to be about your art. They can be about anything you want, but 2 of the things in your life that make you happy to be alive right now.
Jeez, that's so tough.
It's not really. I mean, I hope it's not. A good book, a good walk, a good anything at all. What's something that lit you up?
Okay, so it's funny. It's good that you give 2, because I was thinking, well, I was interested to hear what my brother answered. I do, so what I was thinking about was that I read this thing by Ron McLean.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know who that is, Joey, but he's like sportscaster here.
He's a Canadian sportscasting legend, kind of like Howard Cosell, but not as crazy. But that level of fame. in
Yeah.
Canada.
All right. Okay.
And he did a thing in the Globe and Mail a couple of weeks ago, or they're doing a thing now that's like a Proust questionnaire, but for sports figures. And oh my gosh, every single question he answered, he was quoting someone. I was like, how do you remember all this? I'm terrible. But now I remember one thing, which is what Ron McLean was saying. And he quoted David Byrne saying, do I have to choose just one? Like, can't I, like, being on the beach and whatever the other thing was? So when you asked my brother that and he answered something about being with friends and all that, I was like, oh yeah, that's me too. Like, I really do prioritize, especially because so many of my old friends live in Toronto. So we spend a lot of time and energy getting out to visit our friends. We made a lot of friends here and my whole family's here. But, on the flip side, like, more and more I realize I need my alone time. So the walking, we have a dog now, and I don't always want to go for that walk, but it's very grounding for me. And if I am having trouble getting into the studio, it's just nice to have that routine. I mean, we're kind of all over the map, but every day that has to happen. And so that's a really good thing. But yeah, the work, I mean, the great thing about my work and why I love it, like, I am one of those people, one of those artists who, I like to just go and show up. And I say that, and it's ironic because I really do have a hard time getting in there. But when I do, I doesn't matter what I do. Like, I could cleaning up or sketching or just painting edges or putting wires on the backs of things or getting into new work and everything. And I always love it. Like, I don't think there's any part of it that I dislike. So, that's a real anchor, I would say.
What you got any shows coming up, or you got a show, any stuff hanging now in public anywhere?
Yeah, I have this one that's fun in Napanee, which is a smaller town, like west of Kingston. And they asked, I work with a women's art group here. I volunteer with them and I'm on the board and I'm a member. And the museum asked people, like, for a small group of artists to respond to the theme of nocturne and the nighttime. So I started doing, did you see these at all?
No, are they windmills or wind turbines at night?
Yes, but I put twinkle lights in the painting.
No, that's amazing.
So I essentially just poked holes in the canvas and put twinkle lights behind it. So now it's either remote control or it can be on a timer. And it's a nighttime scene with the lights on because they're lit up at night. I don't know if you know that from seeing wind farms, but they light at night and it flashes. And so I think they look really cool. Like, if you have sort of a dimly lit room or whatever, like, it's kind of like a nightlight or it's hanging in a dark hallway and then you've got twinkle lights on. So that's been fun because it's also been a bit of a logistical nightmare, just working with a museum and having all this many people showing together. It's funny that there are so many details that need to be taken care of, but it pushed me to just do this thing, which, I mean, I just really wouldn't have done because I just thought it was such a simple idea, but it's been really fun.
Are those on your website?
They're not on the website because I haven't figured out how to make them sellable because it's a bit rudimentary. Like, I feel like as soon as you poke a hole in the canvas, it's not really worth as much. And it's just a battery pack behind it right now. So I have to decide, is this something that is going to last hundreds of years or, So at the museum, it's good because the work's not for sale. It's kind of an installation. But they are on my Instagram.
Okay.
Okay.
And what is your Instagram, just so we can tell people?
Susanne Langlois Art.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome.
We'll put it. We'll set a price for you. We'll bid low. We'll set we'll set the minimum bid and we'll go from there.
Okay.
Listeners,
we'll generate some interest anyway.
Listeners, Susanne Langlois, beautiful person, beautiful art. Her website again is Susanne Langlois Art. No, SusanneLanglois.com. SusanneLanglois. You just heard her Instagram, Susanne Langlois Art. She's in Kingston, Ontario, where she shows quite frequently, right, in the region. And check her stuff out. And what? Is that it? Yeah.
I think so.
Check it out.
Thank
It's
you.
beautiful art. We have it. We've
Thank you.
We've bought her art for this house. We love it. And thank you
Looks
for
great.
being our first sibling guest.
Oh my gosh.
Because we like to set records, and we're pretty sure that's one.
Yep.
Sue.
Thank you so much.
Sue.
Now I
right.
want to ask you guys a whole bunch of questions, but we'll do that another time.
Cheers.
All right. Thanks, Sue.
So that's Sue Langlois, who, just for context, is married to one of my oldest friends in the world, Mike Preston. His parents and my parents were thick as thieves, and I basically spent the majority of my childhood hanging out with the Prestons on and off in summers and holidays and everything. And so I know him as well as I know, people that for a length of time. And when they got married, it was a thrill. They had a destination wedding in the Caribbean, Costa Rica.
I think you said.
It was like a week-long wedding with a open bar and like 4 gourmet restaurants that you could order from at any time of the day. It was the best wedding I've ever been to for an extended for the extended entertainment. It was outstanding. So
So do you have one for me today? Do you have I got one for you?
I do. And it's not this is not a classic. Matt McButter would probably reject it on its face if he's listening. Are you listening, Matt? So I was speaking to someone the other day about in Tickled, I introduced this idea called the precision paradox. And the gist of it is simple. As we become increasingly quantified as a society, right, we count everything. And the more that we aim for precision, we try to precisely count things, the farther away we get from meaning, the more we aim for precision. And we count things when we don't understand them. So we think that precision can step in place of meaning. So I was telling someone about this last week.
I think it was me.
Said, no, it was, I was in a meeting with someone, and I said, we count things that we don't understand. And she said straight up, she goes, right, we count our fears, not our joys.
Right. I think we do that. We do it just because it's that sort of the uncertainty of it all, right? Like you're trying to, the thing that you're scared of, you want to pull it down so that it's something manageable, so that it's not the unknown. It's not the thing that you have to be scared of. If you can quantify it in some way, it makes it less scary because you think you have an understanding of it. You know?
Must have read this book, Tickled, where we discuss that, where we say that it gives the illusion of certainty. Mm-hmm. Counting gives the illusion of certainty. But the other reason for that is the flip side, which is that the best things in life are joys. They actually defy quantification. Mm-hmm. You cannot count love. You cannot count beauty. You cannot count kindness. You cannot count excitement. You cannot count truth. We try to, in silly and stupid ways, to quantify and rank beautiful things. But, if you got any sense, you realize that we can't count our joys. So we count our fears, not our joys. So if you find yourself, distracted by some kind of quantification exercise gone wild, realize that it's probably just a distraction and a fear at its root, and turn your attention back to the miracle of your own existence, which is what we do here at How to Tickle Yourself.
Does loving more, if you love more, is that quantifying love in some way? I think
more,
it's not,
more
right?
is more or less is not. I don't consider those quantification. I consider those directional, right? So you can feel something increasing without needing to count it, right? You can feel an increase in excitement. We can't actually point to that increase and say, look, it's up 10%, but you can kind of feel it. So there's nothing wrong with that.
All right. Just
love
checking.
more if you want to. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. I'll try.
All right. So to close us out, we don't have Aurobindo because I can't stop reading this guy, Swami Abhedananda. But in 2020 or so, Jogi of Rockledge coined a term called the tickle ripple. And the point of it was, if you can learn how to tickle yourself, you can tickle other people. Tickles, fan out in waves. But first you have to feel the tickle of existence. Because if you're not feeling it, you're not going to pass it on, right? If you're in a rage, you're not going to tickle someone.
It was listening to Bob Osborne when he finally, we interviewed him years ago, like in the maybe first season, but he was talking when he came to teaching and he'd found the thing that really lights his soul on fire. It affected so many people. I was like, oh, it's the tickle ripple. It is.
All right. Okay. So I found a quote in this book, Bhagavad Gita, The Divine Message, which, while he doesn't use the word tickle, he might as well have. He is describing the tickle ripple. And it goes like this. If we wish to be the highest yogi, we must first learn what is best for our souls. Find that out. We must first know our own souls and what is helpful to the knowledge of our own souls and what brings peace in our souls. Having found that peace and happiness, we should go to the world and give it to the people at large. Otherwise, we have no right to give anything to the world because we ourselves are beggars.
Amen. Do you have a copy of that book? Can you hold it up? I want to just see it.
Bhagavad Gita, The Divine Message by Swami Abhedananda. This is from volume 1, that quote. I'm in the midst of volume 2 right now. Thank you for listening. Listeners, we hope we tickled you. We'll be back with you in a week.
Bye-bye. You've been listening to How to Tickle Yourself with your host, Duff McDonald, and me, Joey of Rockledge. You can help us by liking, subscribing, and sharing this podcast with others. You can talk to us and see what else is happening on Instagram and Facebook at How to Tickle Yourself. This program was recorded in Studio B of the historic Rockledge Recording Studio. Right Here, Right Now, our original 16-part theme music, was written and recorded by the legendary Paul Reddick and Kyle Ferguson of the Sidemen, with Steve Mariner on bass and drums and in the mixing room. This podcast is produced and distributed by Storic Media. Our editor is Oscar Desiderio. Our producers are Kristen Verbitsky and Chuck Labella. For more information, visit storicmedia.com. That's STORIC media.com.
Moments